Hi, and welcome to Every Little Girl podcast. You are watching this podcast because you asked for something from your ancestors, from God, from the universe, from Source. Um, there's something that you need to transform, to heal from, to change, to recover from a broken heart that needs mending. And you prayed about it and you asked, and the universe has conspired and has sent me to you. So welcome. I am Dr. D. I am your host, and this is Every Little Girl Has a Story podcast. I am a transparent facilitator, and so you're going to watch me look through my papers and ups and downs and all of my notes because I want to make sure that I get this message to you. And sometimes I'm going to speak from my heart, sometimes I've jotted some things down, so work with me. We are creating this podcast together. And so, this message is especially for you today because this is when you're seeing it and this is when you needed to hear it. So this is Every Little Girl Has a Story podcast, and it is dedicated to exploring healing and trauma for survivors and victims in leadership roles, whether you're a leader in your house, whether you're a leader in an institution, whether you are a leader in a nonprofit, in social service. This is for the leadership in you. And I will be sharing my personal stories about my leadership experience, my entrepreneurship experience, especially as a Latina survivor. And I'm going to be having intimate conversations throughout with you. And I'm going to bring on some other little girls on the front lines, executive directors, spiritual people, visionaries, cultural change makers, other healers, who are up to healing with accountability, right? And wanting not to just lead and be powerful, but really pull the leadership out of others, because that is what leadership is about seeing the leadership that others have in themselves and being a clearing for them to show up in their power. So together, we're going to be talking about some timely themes, some things that are happening in the world right now. We're going to also talk about grief and boundaries and words such as imposter syndromes. And we're going to talk about change and love and self-care and the impact that women of color survivors, can have in leadership when we take on our own healing, right? Because most of us come into this work because and create families because we have a story and we said at some point, this ends with me. It ends with me. I'm breaking generational poverty. I'm breaking generational trauma. I'm breaking intergenerational violence. I'm going to create a different institution. I'm going to create a different business. I went out there, I saw, and I didn't see what I particularly needed. And so I'm going to create it. This work, that is heart center work, is never about making money. It's always about people and making sure that people have everything that they need to be their best selves. So welcome to today. In this podcast, always, I'm going to be talking about the most important resource in this country, in this world, in your business, in your nonprofit, in your line of work, in your family, and that is you. It's not money. It's not housing. It's not all the other things that are sold to us. It's you. It's the health of your mind, your body, and your spirit, because your family, your business, your nonprofit and this world can only go as far as you can go. And so join me. Thank you for being here today, and join me on this really personal journey and conversation about healing with accountability. And today, you're lucky because I'm going to do my 5-minute TED Talk. That's what it is. I'm going to create my own TED Talk. And my TED Talk is about gender-based violence Ending Gender-Based Violence. That is my TED Talk, but that's also my purpose, my life. And for those of you that don't know what gender-based violence, it is the umbrella where everything, sexual assault, harassment, domestic violence, sexual abuse, trafficking, femicide, right? All the violences and oppressions that a woman can go through in this lifetime falls under gender based violence. And this has been my life's work. I have been a healing justice coach, executive director, a practitioner on the front lines. And what that means is that I've been working with nonprofits who do this work in communities. And yeah, it's what I love to do, and it's what I'm really great at. So today's TED Talk is going to be about that. Just gender-based violence is one of the world's greatest human rights violations that takes place in the lives of women and girls all over the world, but especially it takes place in our homes, our workplaces, our schools, our communities, and in some of the most important spaces and most sacred spaces in our lives. And it impacts not just a woman's personal life, but it impacts the way that we lead families and the way that we run organizations, right? The way that we show up in our lives. I believe that every little girl and every woman, is born powerful and worthy and enough. And then something happens to her and it impacts the way that she loves, that she lives, that she leads without her knowing. And I believe that every little girl, inside every woman, there is a little girl with a story of violence that has shaped her identity and has impacted her without her even knowing. And so this podcast, my mission on this earth, my YouTube channel, I have a Substacks where I talk about this as well. And I have a monthly newsletter that you can subscribe to. But my whole thing is I guess my whole mission on earth is every little girl has a story, and it's because I had a story. And it impacted the way that I showed up as an executive director, in partnership, in relationships. And this podcast is going to reveal, right, our vulnerability. It's going to reveal my vulnerability and also our desperation in search for healing, right? As well as looking at our resiliency and our humanity and women's courage in the face of the so many wars that we face inside of what is supposed to be our most sacred spaces, our homes, and within the workplaces that we found and that we create and that we work in. And so this talk is grounded in my story, right? But it is a story about women and girls all over the world and the ways that gender-based violence impacts our lives in these super invisible ways. And what I hope to do is unmask the insidiousness, right? That happens when we put our young girls in atrocious and violent situations that they never can't come back from sometimes. And for those of us that do and we continue to love, live, and lead, it does impact something at the core of who we are. And so this is an attempt at changing the discourse of violence by showing its depth and its breadth and the scarcity that it leaves in the lives of those of us that experience. See, the thing that no one tells us about healing is that healing happens in retrospect, right? We live moving forward, but we heal going backwards. And we cannot use the information we get from looking back to make ourselves or other people wrong. We can use that information to restore, to reconcile, to look at patterns, to prevent, to discern. We can go back to look at the conversations, the agreements, and the expectations that we now have about ourselves and other people. But if we don't heal, then we will surely create more of the same thing. So healing is not about going back to make yourself wrong. It is about going back so that we remember who we are before the violence. Thank you for being here today.